Canadian airlines are pulling back in a big way from the United States. This has been the case over the past year, and it probably comes as no surprise given the ongoing tariff war and the 51st state rhetoric from US President Donald Trump. But what's interesting is that Canadians have really pulled back by about 14% as of last quarter versus the final 3 months of 2024 from the US in terms of flight volumes. And Canada's big five airlines, though, instead have rerouted a lot of their efforts toward the Caribbean and Latin America. So that region saw something like a 36% jump in flight volumes for the final 3 months of last year, and even greater one for the quarter we're currently in, from January through March. Airlines would say that this is not a bad development, that carriers as large as Air Canada they have the flexibility to shift their planes around and that just use those resources elsewhere, further afield and on flights that might be a little more expensive, but for which Canadians largely seem to be ponying up for. But then again, there are other companies that might struggle a little more. Porter Airlines, for example, hinged a huge fleet expansion largely on growth in the United States. Last year, it had to rapidly adjust that strategy. It is now flying to various places in the Caribbean and Mexico. It had 0 flights outside of Canada and the US as of a year ago. Now it's got hundreds per month. So they're reaching a little farther, and transport expert John Graddick, for example, has said there is a risk of slower passengers numbers on these flights, which would damage the airline's profitability. But for now, for passengers, it means a greater range than ever of choices overseas. Competition among carriers is more intense, and that means their profit margins are thinner. But otherwise, there are a lot of options out there if you want to steal away for a sun-splashed vacay.